Hello, this is Lisa Phillips, and welcome to AffordableRealEstateInvestments.com. It's where I give you an honest and practical guide to real estate investing at a price you can afford. Today, I am very honored to have Monica Louie on with us today. Monica Louie is of our debt-free family, and I really like her story because she's overcome a lot in her past, from the situation with her family to her own habits that she inherited in her 20s to get where she is today, to help people get to their first property or build their savings or get out of debt and build the all the capital you need to make it in this world. So thank you so much for coming on, Monica. I'm glad that we have the honor of getting to hear your input and your thoughts on how you do help people with this.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Okay, so I reached out to Monica because a lot of you are in the early stages of real estate investing, and you're at the stage where you need to build the capital. You need to have that money for the down payment and the money for some renovations. And you could supplement a little bit of that with credit, but at the end of the day, you have to sort of build the credit yourself. So when you go to other people, be it a credit union, bank, or another investor, you're like, look, I've proven I know how to make money and create money and have a pile of it, so I can invest. And that is an absolute integral part of this. And half of my audience is there, and they have more in the bank than I'll ever have, and the other half still needs help. But the thing is, they know that they need help to get to that next step. They understand it is a process, and that's why I reached out to Monica to go, hey, you've worked with people before, let's get something going so that we can get people to their first rental, within 12 months and whatnot. And Monica agreed, and we've been brainstorming, and we came up with this. So I wanted to introduce her methodology so you could learn it and apply it to your own life. So Monica, will you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your background and history with it and how you got to this point, and what you now do to try to help everyone get to their first rental property.
Absolutely. So my name is Monica Louie, and I'm from OurDebtFreeFamily.com, as Lisa mentioned. And my story starts when I grew up as an only child. I had a single mom. My parents separated and divorced when I was little. And so it was just my mom raising me, and it was always a struggle financially. She incurred a lot of credit card debt just trying to provide for me. And we always envisioned that I would grow up, go to college, get a good job, and kind of avoid the money struggles that she had. So that was our vision for me. And unfortunately, I did go to college, but when I graduated, I had already started down the path of credit card debt myself. And instead of getting better as I envisioned it would, it actually got worse. And so in my mid-20s, I was deep, well over my head in credit card debt, and just really relying on credit cards to survive. And so, yeah, so it was a very sad time in my life, because I felt like this was not the path that I was supposed to be on. We had always, hoped for better things for me. And I knew that I didn't want to continue down that path that my mother did. So eventually I did dig myself out of credit card debt. So I paid off all of my credit cards. And then I met the man of my dreams, and I got married. And luckily, he never really carried credit card debt. And he had some savings in the bank. And so that made me feel better that, I knew that I was marrying someone who was good with money. And so we went along, and then finally we got pregnant with our first child. And that's when I realized that I didn't want to go back to work at this job that I didn't love. I would rather be home with my child and be the one to take care of him and raise him and teach him all these things. And so we started to brainstorm how we could put ourselves in a position financially to afford for me to quit my job. So it was a transition. I first transitioned to part-time, and I did that for a year. And so in that time, we paid off our car and tried to free up some other money so that we didn't have as many expenses to cover. And then luckily by that time, after I did part-time for a year, my husband had gotten a promotion. We were in a better place financially. We realized that we could work out the numbers, that his income could cover our expenses. Mm-hmm. So May 1st of 2013 was my last day at work, And by that time, we had also found out that I was pregnant with my daughter. But that's when our story kind of took a turn, because we knew that my husband's income should have been enough to cover our expenses. But by the end of June, we saw that our savings that we had built up to prepare for this transition had started to dip, and we just knew that with our daughter, on the way, that was not the path that we wanted to go down. So I have a background in finance, even though I always felt that my husband was better with money because he had the savings and didn't have the credit issues that I did. So I relied on my background in finance, and then I studied of how we could be smarter with our money. And that's when we started not only just being better money managers for our family and surviving on one income, but we also decided to get out of debt. So in August of 2013, we started our debt-free journey to pay off all of our debt, not just stay out of credit cards. So in 2 years, from August 2013 to August 2015, we paid off $120,000 of debt.
Whew.
On a single middle-class income.
But you have to sacrifice. And don't get me wrong, I love the word sacrifice. I realize a lot of people don't do it. So it's a good thing, I think, because because it means you have something. You're just carving from something else to put it there. But how was that journey of $120,000 in the family? And I just want to mention, I'm pregnant with my first child, and I decided that I didn't want to work as well. And I have my real estate investments and my Airbnb business, and we kept our expenses low. But the thing leading up to now has been we got to get out of debt. You just can't do it when you owe all these things. Now, it has been pretty hard. A lot of sacrifice. You can't go out and do what you want. You have to look at our budget every month. We have to put large sums of money away. I mean, a lot in order to get this. So it was really aggressive. But, you choose your poison. We can keep the debt, and I can go back to work 6 weeks after my baby's born. Or we can be extremely aggressive and throw the majority of our paycheck towards the debt. So what was your story like? But I'm just saying I'm in it right now, because, I know I don't think I ever saw my parents when I was growing up. I don't want to do that. I want to be at least there for at least the major milestones. They were always working, though, so I learned a really good work ethic, and they did their best because they had 7 kids. I was 6 out of 7, so I don't hate the player. I don't hate the game, to be honest. But yeah, that's sort of what you have to do to go on this journey. So what was your 120,000 debt-free initiative like, so you could be home and not demolish the savings you built up?
Right. Well, I was very committed I started tracking our spending, created a detailed budget, and I was very committed to making this work so that I didn't have to go back to work when I was still pregnant or shortly after my daughter was born.
Right.
So that I could, stay home. So that was my motivation, because I didn't want my desire to be home with my kids to put us in a financial strain. And it also felt like just relying on one income, that sole source of income, that we wanted to be responsible. And if, something were to happen with my husband's job, because, we had just gone through the recession a few years ago, and a lot of people lost their jobs unexpectedly. So if that were to happen to our family,
exactly.
how could we put ourselves in a better situation to handle that if it were to happen?
Job losses. Yeah, job loss can happen at any time. And we say that every day. I'm like, look, John, if you lose your job, we at least have the money coming in for our Airbnb, and that pays the mortgage. And that is real discussions. We're white collar, and all our friends have these $400,000 houses, and we bought this house and it's sort of like one step above the neighborhoods I invest in my sub 30K market. But we're like, cool, we can cover that part. And you know what I mean? Like, those decisions have to be made because job loss can happen. He's a contractor. Contracts don't last forever.
Yeah, and that was a huge thing. So if we didn't have to pay those debts, we'd be in a lot better position if we only had to cover our mortgage. And our ultimate goal is to pay off our mortgage early, so that we, have very minimal living expenses. But so that was the thing, is that, we're trying to do the responsible thing for our kids and be able to take care of them, no matter what happens, just because you never know. So that's what spurred us, and it did involve sacrifice, as you mentioned. So I started tracking all of our spending, with the budgeting, and my husband would work as much overtime as he possibly could. There was a point where he had the opportunity to go to another state for 2.5 months, when my daughter was actually 4 months old. And so he went to another state because there was more overtime opportunity there, and he worked like 16-hour days straight. He didn't take a single day off while he was there, and he pretty much doubled his income during that point. So we threw all of that money towards the debt, and then every dollar that we could, we sold things left and right, and we looked around and said, what could we live without, that we would rather have the money in our account to put towards the debt. So that was really our process of getting very intentional with where our money was going, and figuring out how we could bring in extra money to get us there faster.
And I just want to say, I've been doing this for about 4 years, and I speak to a lot of people out in the world now because of it. There are so many moms and dads who are willing to do this. They just need a little help, but I have seen so many people willing to put the level of effort you guys have put into it, and they're ready. So I'm very optimistic that if people want it, they can get it. There's a lot of dads out there who would work 16 hours a day for their kids. I know you hear all the bad stories, but there's just as many good ones. And mothers who are willing to do what they need to do in order to make sure the family's together. So, there's a lot of amazing people in this world and country who sort of model your actions. And so I'm glad you're here to help give them just a parameter, to put it in a box and step-by-step portion so they can implement it themselves if that's what they would like to do.
Well, and that's exactly what I now do, is I've taken this passion of mine and turned it into a way to help other people achieve this freedom from debt that we've achieved. And it started because my husband would go to work and talk about how much debt we were paying off so quickly, and he gave me a lot of credit for tracking all the spending and making sure that we were sticking to our goals. And so one of his coworkers one day said, Monica should be the financial coach for the office and help us all get out of debt. And when he told me that, I kind of laughed at first, but then I thought, oh my gosh, I would love that. So I actually started working with her and her partner, and we worked together for 18 months. And over that time, they paid off $49,000 of debt in 18 months. And in addition to that, they cash flowed a trip to Hawaii and a trip to Ireland. And so they made a point to, pay off the debt quickly, but also enjoy their money and spend it on things that they really loved. So that's very rewarding when I hear from my clients and people I've worked with that they are making progress.
Start throwing numbers like that around. Cool. So thanks so much for sharing that story with us and how you got to where you're at. And so there's a lot of people, as I mentioned when we were speaking over the phone and trying to come up with something, who want to buy their first rental properties. And like I said, there's a full spectrum of people out there who want this as the end goal. And I love this end goal. It's an amazing goal. It's a lot of security for a lot of people. My niche is to go towards more affordable properties, so you're cash flowing faster and you own it a lot quicker. And people resonate. They understand the dynamics that can work. So tell me about your process that you've discovered. I think you do it in a 6-step process. You make it very simple and easy, but you make it deep, and that's your differentiation. So can you sort of give me an overview of the 6-step process to help those out there who might be listening, who are on this beginning stages? Because like we said, you need a little capital for the down payment. And what I usually do, if you just want to get one property this year, I say have about $10,000 to $14,000 available. You need some for the down payment for a house in this price range, and some for the renovations. Have about $12,000 in open credit lines available for emergencies. And the best score to have, 640 is the bare minimum, but a 680 credit score, you really start opening yourself to most major institutions or credit unions, to their different type of loan products. So between all that, we can make this work.
Right.
Now, you know what I mean? Like, we have to work a little bit in other places, but we can make that work. So that's your minimum. And it's your minimum for a reason, because, as you know, when you buy a property, I don't care how well it's inspected, it's when you turn the water on for 5 hours or someone uses the washing machine that you go, oh shoot, I have a $3,000 plumbing bill, and that's just what it is. You need to fix it right and tight, but you need to have that backup ready for those surprises that come outside of what you expected. Just because you don't know how a house is unless you live in it for a month. If you're not living in it, you're going to start noticing the little things that you may have overlooked that you can't catch in an inspection, right? So we're all on the same page.
Yeah,
You
true.
need a little base. And I'm not saying this is impossible. We can do this for most people, even if you're on a modest income, because trust me, I've spoken to people who make, gosh, my last client, she, she worked in a cafeteria, so she wasn't making much hourly, but she kept her expenses low.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, she had more money than a lot of people who make 60, 70, 80,000. She's like, yeah, I have 35,000. I don't do anything. My expenses are low. I just work and save my money. So don't think it's how much money you make. It's your lifestyle, and you go into that. Do you not?
That's so true. Yes. So for the 6 steps, it's really a comprehensive process because I want to look at everything so that we can find where money is sitting that we can use for the goal. So the first step is getting a clear picture of the current situation. So what kind of assets do you have? What are your debts? I look at net worth, and so that net worth is the difference between your assets and your liabilities. And what is your income? So we do an income assessment, and then I also have a checklist for a strong financial plan that's just kind of the overall picture. What pieces do you have in place right now, and then what may be missing that we need to pay attention to? So that's the first step, getting very clear on what the current situation is. The second, yes.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
So there's some people who go out and just do this, and they're ready to invest, and then there's other people who know all this and they don't do it themselves. Can you just give me what's the thing that you've noticed from the people you've worked with? What stopped them from taking that extra stress to an aggressive, debt reduction, capital building? What was it that made your colleagues, coworkers not get it? Were they not motivated? Was your motivation of being able to stay at home with your family so important it was worth it? So is it the motivation, or is there something else a little bit different and more subtle where other people just aren't taking the time to do this?
Yeah, I think that actually falls in line with the second step, which is what are the goals that we're trying to achieve? And not only what are they, but why are they important? And so when you have a very strong, reason why you're doing this, why you're willing to do the sacrifice, then you're more likely to succeed. And so that's part of what I do, is help remind you of, you said this was important, and here's why it's important, because it's going to allow you to invest in the rental properties, so that you can create that extra income stream for yourself and start your real estate business. Yeah. So that's step 2, is getting very clear on why. But yes, okay. So a lot of people do get overwhelmed by that first step because maybe their net worth isn't what they thought it was going to be. It's, worse or different, or maybe they have more debt than they realize. That can be really overwhelming when you actually sit down and add up all the numbers. And so some people, it's just kind of like a deer in headlights, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do now. And so that's why I've got, the 6 steps put together to create the plan of action. Sure. But the first step is just getting clear on where we stand so that we know what progress has been made. So we can look back, a month, 2 months, 3 months, and see how far you've come. Even when you feel like, progress is slower than you wanted, you can look back and say, but look at how much debt I've paid off, or look how much I've been able to save for my down payment. That, and getting clear on the goal in step 2 is where we really focus and prioritize those goals.
Okay.
So step 3 is developing the core habit to financial success, and that is tracking the spending. So this is where a lot of people have resistance because they don't want to take the time, or they don't want to look at the numbers. They don't want to be bothered by it, but really it's really important to figure out where's your money historically going, so that down further in the later steps we can adjust that to move the money to where it needs to go in order to meet the goals. So tracking the spending, getting very clear on where the money has been going and where, so that we know in the future how we can, rearrange some things to get you to the goal faster. Mm-hmm. And then step 4 is if part of the process is getting out of debt so that you can free up some money to put towards the savings, then that's where we prioritize how you're going to pay off the debt, in what order, which debt are you going to focus on first.
And that's a big one.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you're a doctor or you make $14 an hour. People are stuck on that.
Well, and that was one thing when I was getting out of credit card debt in my 20s. I would, my initial approach was, pay a little extra here, pay a little extra there, pay a little extra there. And then I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere, And so once I started focusing on paying off one debt at a time, that's when I started to see considerable progress. I was able to cross them off my list, and just having that focus makes it so that you can see your progress easier and you see that you are actually moving forward. So that's where that is. And then step 5 is creating the realistic spending plan. So this is the budget, the comprehensive budget. And it's not just listing out what your expenses are and does your income cover that. I get really detailed in making sure that we are allowing for those surprise expenses that come up, like gifts or clothing or car repairs, because a lot of times I'll work with people and they say, I don't need to spend money on clothing, just cross that off my budget. But, at some point you or your kids are going to need some new underwear or some pants or something. The car is going to need tires at some point, So we want to make sure that we are allocating money for those things. And so I've got a plan for all of that to put it all together. So that we have the money set aside so you don't get derailed, because a lot of people get discouraged when there is a surprise expense and they feel like they're taking, one step forward, 2 steps back. So that's why
it's gonna come.
Yeah, there's gonna be something that is a surprise. So we try and plan for those as much as we can ahead of time. And then step 6 is the fun part, I think. It's finding more money.
Right.
So that's where we look at, cutting some spending. Are there some things we can cross off the budget altogether? Can we be creative about saving money in certain areas? And then also, can we be creative about bringing in extra income? Mm-hmm. And so that really accelerates the progress. So you might look at where you stand now and think, I don't have room in my budget to save for the down payment. But when we add in, cutting some spending and then bringing in extra income, you get there a whole lot faster than you thought originally.
Don't underestimate the side hustle. Don't underestimate Airbnb a bedroom if you can, or a roommate. Just don't underestimate when you're earning an extra $200 to $400 a month. Shoot, I've done mystery shopping. I sold Cutco knives after I graduated with an electrical engineering degree, so that was a little embarrassing, but I did it because it was $14 per sale. So no, I mean, it's so funny. Like I always just do that naturally because I'm like, I need more money. What are we going to do? And using my time to make extra income. And I'm very glad my husband's like that too. So we're not lazy people at all. Mm-hmm. But, being specific about it, like, no, this is a specific strategy to get you to your first investment property. Do you have it now? You don't? Okay, we need to get it. And don't turn your mind off. It's like steps. And once you get this, then we're on to another journey. But you need this journey in order to know, okay, if I spend this $14K this first year for this first rental, great. Now you know exactly what to do to get it up again, and probably a lot faster and a lot sooner, right?
Definitely.
So it's a skill that you use over and over again.
Exactly.
But so tell me a little bit about the people and the kind of debts that you help them clear up. And when I say the kind of people, like what's the differences or maybe what the similarities are despite the differences?
Well, a lot of people, they get into debt because they feel like they don't have another option. So whether it's, using the credit card to put food on the table or, acquiring student loans to get through college, they acquire the debt because they felt that they had that need. But then the turning point and what really sets people up for success is when they say, okay, I'm not going to rely on the credit card anymore. I'm going to stop using the credit card, or, I'm really going to focus on ridding myself of the student loan. Student loan does not have to be a life sentence. I can get rid of it and get it off my plate. And so it's really just drawing that line in the sand of, this is a new way of life for me. And it may not be what everybody else is doing. A lot of people are, still using credit cards or acquiring debt, but really drawing the line in the sand of, that's the old way of life, and my past does not have to dictate my future. And also, with the income, that's something that holds people back, is they think, well, this is how much I make in my job, and so they feel limited by that. But that's just what the situation is today. Maybe we look at, applying for some jobs that can bring in more income, or the side hustles, like you were saying, getting creative about bringing in extra income, and so that you can meet your goals faster. So really just being open-minded to how we can actually achieve the goal, because just because your situation is one way today doesn't mean that it's going to be that way forever.
Right. And what I like to say is, when you're having the successes you have, you help this couple get out of $49,000 in debt in 18 months. I don't care who you are. That's valuable. I don't care who you are, where you live, what your title is. I don't care if you're a doctor. I don't care if you're a lawyer. I don't care what you do if you're a bus driver. That's significant, okay? So, you know what I mean? Sometimes, everyone needs a little bit of help sometimes to get to that next level, and some people don't. But it's definitely part of the whole entire process. So, thank you so much for So, I want to give this to the audience and say thank you, Monica, for working with me. She has a whole plan set up specifically for those who end goal is an investment property. Why do you want the rental property? For cash flow income. Why? So if you do stop working, you're not as stressed out, you're financially cured, and you feel comfortable in what you're doing because of how you set your life up. And you have to start now, because why wait 10 years from now? It takes time to build this thing up. The sooner you start, the better. So thank you so much for partnering with me. And for everyone, if you'd like to go see Monica, you can go to her site at Our Debt Free Family. There's a link below that is specific to this crowd, specifically geared towards rental property ownership and cash flowing rental property ownership, and building up the foundation to do that. So if you guys would like to, she's more than willing to talk to you about what you're, and have a power session with you and talk about where you're at right now within this subject, within this goal, and either give you some tips if you need to, or be willing to work with you a little bit. It just depends on what you want. And she's opening that up to the affordable real estate investing audience. So anything you'd like to say about that?
Yeah, they can go to ourdebtfreefamily.com/affordable REI to check out how they can work with me, or set up a 20-minute power session to talk, and I can answer any questions that you have, learn about your situation, see if, how we can work together.
Or even a quick plan of action.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We're going to have a few more things for Monica. She's already been working with a few of the people we sent her way. And as we go along, we're going to talk about those stories and relate it back to you as real estate investors or future real estate investors, what the process looks like. Is it as hard as you think it is? Or as I think, you guys are already so ready and committed to that mindset. It is nothing but giving you guidance and a structure. You're already there mentally, knowing that you have to do in order to make this happen. That's what I truly feel is the answer. So thank you so much, Monica.
Thank you.
And look forward to working with you some more.
Thank you.